All right, Brent, I think this guest today, Brent Rollins, joins me every week. We're always talking college football. This is kind of cool because these are your dudes, man. Like your guys that served your university for a long time and now went to the Combine. And the Combine is an absolute – it's weird. Brent, you either really like it or you don't. Like, do you really like watching it or do you despise it like some people do?
I like watching the clips on social media, like the speed stuff and some of the explosive things. But I definitely am not a sit down and watch it on TV person. I can read that your 40 is 4.39 or 4. Now, if it's 4.21, I'm going to go back and like Xavier Worthy last year, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch that. I'm going to see the comp from you to, they're going to put the silhouette of Pollack in there. They're going to put the silhouette of Rich Eisen in there or something like that. Those will be fun. I'll look at that. But
those are fun.
But yeah, don't really watch it as it goes along through the weekend.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to talk to DJ because Daniel Jeremiah he's been doing this for a long time. He was a scout for the Ravens, just a good dude. But he's an excellent communicator, and just I think his time, Brent, with the Ravens, like the background that he has and the knowledge, it's so effortless. It's so easy, the sayings, and he's got some good stories that I've talked to him about over the years with guys that he's scouted and the experiences. So I think it'll be good. But, the Combine is not my element to just watching every bit of it either. But I do think it's fun to watch the best of anything, like the best of the best on a stage. Like there's something about like Shedeur Sanders standing next to Cam Ward. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do like that. Do you like at least seeing the guys in person next to other guys in person without pads, without uniform, not game day? There's something about that I've always enjoyed too.
And there's something about watching guys who don't perform and knowing you like I do probably bothers you a little bit because you would probably be like, okay, I'm watching that guy. I can do that better. I can be more explosive than that. Like the competitive nature, it's interesting, the dynamic of they know they sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say can't, but shouldn't, and they're going to go throw in the pro day or go work out at the pro day or they're getting back from an injury, things like that. But the competitor in like you, I know you would want to compete. And all right, well, I'm doing it. I wasn't going to, but I am now.
Yeah, but these guys are told, like, I'll be honest, like these guys have agents that are telling them what to do and what not to do. And some of them are very clear, like, listen, it's not, if this isn't going to help you, why would you do it? And so some of the drills and some of the, like the quarterback spot, like I can't explain to you how much, you're throwing to a new guy who you don't know how speedy they are. Like some guys are effortless gliders. Some guys, yep. They look like they're fast, but they're not fast. Some guys are long striders. Like there is a dynamic of that it's new, it's different. You've got to figure it out on the fly. You got to be comfortable figuring out on the fly. The ball is different. The environment is different. So I kind of understand throwing with your dudes, and yes. That makes sense. Like defensive line, I'm doing drills on air. Like I'm doing drills against dummies. Those dummies are the same at home as they are away. And I'm not talking about individuals who are dummies. I'm talking about literal dummies. Yes. So, yeah. The drills, but it was fun to go through those drills, man. And I'm not gonna lie. Like I literally remember going into the bowl game my senior year, and it was between me and Erasmus James, who were talked about a lot as defensive ends and who would get drafted first. And I can't tell you, I had 30 straight days, or 20 something straight days with my guys of my tackles. And I'm like, bro, you better kick his ace. Like, you better ruin this dude, and you better take pride in ruining this dude. And so, then you get there to the combines, and you're like, holy cow, DeMarcus Ware. I remember looking at DeMarcus Ware, and I'm like, it's a pretty tall. Hey, Troy? Like, what? Troy? Yeah. Like, that's weird. Like, why am I going against a guy from Troy? Like, is he that good? And then you watch him move, and you're like, okay, that guy moves pretty dang good. So it is interesting with those guys from the different schools that come that you haven't really heard much about, and you watch them move, and you're like, are they really good or not? And I think that's what, we'll talk to DJ now and talk to him next about, is just those other guys that you haven't heard their name a lot, and you haven't seen them a lot because you don't watch all levels of football that come out of nowhere, but they're really good football players because its scheme might not work. Like, you don't run when you play corner or wide receiver, if you play wide receiver in a system that only runs a couple routes, you don't get to show off your skills. If you play corner in a system that is straight press man all the time, I don't know about your instincts in zone coverage and your eyes and the way you see and break on the football. So all of those things come into account. And listen, stop listening to me talk about it and Brent talk about it. Like, this guy, Daniel Jeremiah, is one of the best at what he does. So let's talk to him. All right, the next guy we got, man, you will know him if you watch the draft. If you don't, what are you doing? But Daniel Jeremiah, I've known this guy for a long time. I was saying Move the Sticks on Thursday Night Football when before Move the Sticks was even really, really cool. Now he's, a superstar, but an awesome human being. Those Dodgers, wow. The Padres tickets a few years ago from Dad were the best seats in the house. That was so dope. It was ridiculous. It's all my son wanted to do was go to a Padres game and go to San Diego for his 12th birthday. DJ, Daniel Jeremiah made it happen. Appreciate you joining us, big dog.
No, great to be with you, man. It's great to be with both you guys. The invitation's always open anytime you want to come back. Anybody that wants to come check out the Padres, I'm always there to help in that regard, man. It's a great ballpark. You can't beat it.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite. Our family's been to 20-something of the ballparks.
Oh, jeez.
And it's kind of a thing we do. And it is utterly my favorite. So since we're talking Padres, us Georgia guys, we want to know, he might not care, Dave, that is.
Yeah. Profar?
Profar. Are we going to enjoy watching Profar every day?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's always done way better for the Padres than he has in his other stops that he's had. But he takes a professional at bat each and every time. He's got a really good eye. He gets on base. He was kind of like our emotional guy. Like we got in a couple dust ups last year, and he's always kind of in the middle of it. Dodgers hated him, which made us love him as a Padre fan. So yeah, he's a pro. I hope you get the Padre version and not like the Rocky version. If you get the Rocky version, then disregard everything that I just said.
I don't even know who you're talking about. I don't care who you're talking about because I don't care about baseball. But you two guys could go on for a while.
How do you not like it at all? I mean, especially growing up where you grew up, man.
Obviously, we had some good times. And I used to tell everybody my phone number growing up. I would always be like 770-985 Michael Jordan, Greg Olson. So like we were Braves fans. Like
nice.
we definitely had it in us. But dude, you just spent how many hours at the combines and watching
21 hours of live TV over
21 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Well, 21 hours worth of live television. What was the big takeaways, man? Like, first, before you get there, the big takeaways, because you're going to talk about that a lot. Like, when you go into this process and you scouted for so many years and you know football, like, what does the combine mean to you? What are you looking for? Like, besides the guys running in uncomfortable outfits that get more uncomfortable every single year, like, what are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I mean, first of all, just seeing guys in person, I always think there's more value with some areas and some positions than others. I don't know that the offensive line, it's always good to just kind of get the measurements because you don't know, what a guy, you might have 6'6" on him and he's really 6'3" and change, so getting like the legit measurements there. But really, to me, like how the corners run and how the corners move, seeing that live and in person, because, college-wise, you could have a team, and not to get in the weeds, but, I mean, you play, if you're a quarters team, and I'm not going to see this guy get up. I'm not going to see him press. I'm not going to see him open up. And I don't know if he can really run. He might not have seen any NFL receivers all year long that matched up with him that stressed him vertically. So, like, the corner position matters a ton with the combine. Quarterbacks, I always like seeing them throw live. I think it's better than just watching it on tape. You get a feel for it when you're in the building and can see it. So some of those things. And then, seeing buddies around the league and maybe finding out some nuances about the person more so than what the player is. I think there's a lot of value there.
So who won? Who were your guys that you're watching there? Obviously, you had a few sort of physical super freaks, I think, with Stewart and Eamon. Who else were that you watched and you're like, okay, this guy totally blew me away?
There's always guys that confirm what you saw, and then there's guys that are like, oh, man, I'll probably go double up and watch some more on this dude, make sure that I'm, I need more conviction here, so I'm going to have to go back to the tape and have that tape provide the conviction. But I like the two Longhorns going into the process. Matthew Golden, the receiver, I was high on him, and I was funny because a lot of buddies in the league were like, yeah, I don't know if he can run. I'm like, dude, this guy can run. I promise you this guy can run. And he ran 4.29. It was like the fastest receiver there. So that one. that was check the box. And then Jahdae Barron, who has played all over for them, who I think is going to just, he's best as a nickel. But there was the same question. I was like, I don't know if he can run. And I think he ran 4.39. So you've got great tape, great ball production. He's tough. He doesn't miss tackles. Just a really good player. And that was kind of the knock or the question, I guess, with some folks was the speed. And he answered it. So those are two that, like, just right off the top of my head. But Eamon Wari's I knew he was a freak show, and I think everybody kind of universally knew that he was a freak show. So as incredible as it was, like, I think that was expected going into the process.
Well, what about these quarterbacks? Because we always talk about the quarterbacks and just, some throwing, some don't, so you don't get your eyes on it. And listen, I understand why a quarterback doesn't throw. Like, throwing to new guys in a new place, like it's different. You don't know how fast they run. There's so much nuance in quarterback and so much timing. And there's a reason Peyton spent always so much time with his buddies and brought them in and didn't throw with other people as much as possible. So what do we learn about the quarterbacks that aren't that really highly rated compared to a lot of other classes?
Yeah, to the first part of it, Dave, like the people that are railing on him, for not throwing the top guys. The top guys haven't thrown at this thing in a decade for the most part. We've had a couple. CJ Stroud actually did, and it was probably the best throwing session that I've ever seen there, just in terms of, make every throw on balance, can drive it, could layer it, can float it. Like every kind of throw you want to make, he made. But those are rare to have a session like that kind of, knocks your socks off. This year, we didn't have the top guys throw. I thought, there was some good. I thought Jackson Dart, just seeing him live, he had a little bit more. We saw it at the Senior Bowl and then seeing it here. So the more I see him live, the more I appreciate that he can power the ball a little bit more than maybe I thought off of the tape. Tyler Shuck is big, strong, physical guy, but you got to have he's going to be 26 years old. So you're going to have that debate on the age and the durability and all that stuff. But those two guys, I thought the way they spun it and threw it were probably best in show from that group.
Do you think QB1 and QB2 is closer, or is that gap between QB1 and QB2 maybe wider than many think?
I have it. I have Cam about 5 spots over Shedeur. So I have, there's a little bit of distance there with those two guys. I think when you talk to people around the league, and I always laugh at this because I've had this question before, and my answer is, well, if I've talked to 30 teams and 30 of them feel like there's this huge gap, but there's one team out there who doesn't see there as a gap, and then they get picked and they go, gosh, well, you got some terrible information, man. Like, obviously these guys are right next to each other. I'm like, you can't canvass 32 teams and know it only takes one. You don't have to get 32 teams to fall in love with you. You only need one. So I think it's hard to handicap, where Shedeur is going to go. I feel pretty confident at this point in the process, Cam is going to be the first quarterback that's picked. And then it's just a matter of, where Shedeur ends up landing up in the process.
When you go to these things and you say you talk to all the people, like, what was something that stood out this year that you constantly, like, some information that you constantly kept hearing, or something that kept clicking, like somebody that everybody was talking about consistently?
Yeah, I'll give you two. Malachi Stark's interviews, which won't surprise you, were outstanding. Incredible. So, like, he's one that, for me, when I watched him, I appreciated the movement. I appreciated how fluid and athletic he was. I mean, the Clemson game was his best tape, which was right out the gate. And then he just didn't make as many plays as he has in years past. So I came away from that and I was like, okay, I'm kind of, maybe I'm being hard on him. I think I have him in like the early 30s. And then I came out of that week. I'm like, okay, I know his testing was middle of the road, but if you go through we have all that player tracking data and,
yes,
and like how he was moving faster than everybody through all the drills. His 3-cone wasn't any good. His 40 was middling. It was like 4.50, which good, but nothing like Eamon Wari. But I'm like, all right, well, let me just step back here. This guy has a history of playing well as a younger player. He's still really young. I think he's 20 years old. And then when you hear from multiple teams about the intelligence and like the leadership and the presence, I firmly believe, and I'll love your guys' take on it, but I've always felt in all different sports that the closer you get to the middle of the field, the more leadership, intelligence, communication matters. I don't care what sport it is. So to me, I put extra weight on that with a safety. So I'm going to move him up. I'm going to move him up my list because there's just too many other dots that are connected that I'm gonna forgive maybe him not making as many plays this year, and know that that's going to come in the future. And the other one maybe surprised me a little bit. Everybody loved Judkins going through the interview process, and not that I had some negative opinion on him, but it was kind of thought from the outside like Travion Henderson is just viewed, a little more favorably in terms of all the other stuff, maybe the work ethic, all those things. But they said Judkins, I had multiple teams like, dude, that kid was a stud. And then he shows up 220 pounds and runs in the mid 4.4s. And I'm like, okay, well, he did himself some good.
The Starks thing is interesting because that's actually one of the notes that I had written down, because it's sort of the traditional things that we look at, like you said, the 40 and some of those other measurements weren't there. But then those drills, he was the number one mover in all the drills. But I think the point that you made with him is the playing early piece. Yeah. And to me, that's one of those things. If you're playing early in Kirby Smart's defense, it's here. Like the mental capability and the mental processing is very much there for him. So I do think he's one that's going to be like I think you had him to the Eagles in your first mock. If he falls to the Eagles, and they're going to snap him up in an absolute heartbeat and add to.
They would not draft a Georgia player. I disagree strongly.
Yeah, the whole thing is there's no clear packaging with players, right? I would love to have, all of it in front of you and you can see everything. You got to connect some dots. You got to have some faith with that. And to me, that's a great point. It's why, like Will Anderson, arm length wise, everybody's hitting them on the shorter arms and all that kind of stuff. And there's some tape you see in the Arkansas game where they got on his edges a little bit. But when you look at, okay, he's got unbelievable feet. You just watch him move around. He's got left tackle feet. He can really, really move. And when you talk to folks at LSU who've been there for 20 years and they say they've only had 4 players that have come in and started game one as a true freshman and never been pulled, have held that job their entire career before they go off to the NFL. 4 over like 20 years. Like that kind of stuff. Let's fill in that. We can color in the rest of the picture here. You don't have to see it all, but like those guys are the kind of guys you bet on.
After all these years of doing this, like, you have to have learned, the misinformation season that starts and people start talking about things to gain an edge. Or how have you learned with wisdom, like to decipher, what's real? Because there are people that, that are homers that say things because they want to back a dude. And there are some people that won't be as serious or as honest, obviously, than other people. How do you learn to navigate that information?
Well, I've learned that the closer you get to the draft, the worse the information gets. So okay. I've gotten better at it over the years of trying to at least make a mental note or even putting a little notes thing in my phone. When you're getting information on the team side of things during the fall, that tends to be accurate. When you talk to a GM friend who happened to just see a college game on Saturday and you're talking to him on, the Monday after, you get a good feel for whether he likes a certain player or not. Now, the more you get in the spring, the more their radar's up about, oh man, I don't want to spill the beans here, let anything out. So the closer you get, the worse the information gets. I get bombarded, as you can imagine, with agents, that have stuff. I've almost kind of made it a sport to some degree. Like we were going. I won't say who it was. There was a receiver, and he was sending. I get texts through the whole combine. Hey, this is all these little nuggets on my player, and this, that, and the other. So it's trying to pump their guys. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes, hey, this kid like rode horses when he was a kid. Like, oh, it's kind of fun. Okay, I can, mention that. But I'm never going to ever take an evaluation from an agent. But this one said was just loving up their receiver client. Just this long list of all the attributes and how great the receiver was. And I wrote back. I said, I really like him. I do like him. I wish he caught the ball. I mean, that would be great. And then he wrote back like, well, no, if you look at all the metrics, like as if like I don't have access to the metrics. And I like wrote him back. I'm like, dude, he's like 44th in drop rate amongst the receivers at the combine. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not snowing me here. But that's like a fun sport for me. It's like put up the shield as like the agent information is overwhelming, from
it'd be fun. It'd be fun to do, DJ. It'd be fun to, because like I immediately have a guy that comes to mind. And I want to guess him. I'm not going to.
Because I'm not trying to do that to anybody.
No. But I immediately have a guy that I'd think about. But what about this, man? All the years of doing it, what's the craziest? Like I watched the Johnny Manziel documentary on Netflix, and it was like he was hammered and he was jacked up. And like, what was the craziest story? You don't even have to mention a name, but like something over the years that nobody would even think about. Like this really happened at the combines, and it was like, and not over reported, but like, just talk about something you've heard that's kind of nuts.
I'll give you a few stories, some of my favorites. I'll do the first one. Darren Sproles, when he was coming out, he wasn't in your class, was he, Dave?
I was 05. He
might have been around. It was around those
Really
years.
close.
Yeah, really close to there. So was that combine years coming out of K-State? You remember Sproles was 5'5". So they had the sticker, and or if people haven't seen it, when you're getting officially heighted, there's a wall, or a board and a wall, and then it's an NFS scouting sticker that's this long. It has all the measurements on it, and so you put that up against the wall. It doesn't go from the floor; it's only this big, and it covers pretty much anybody from all the normal height ranges. So, and you got to get up there, and this is you're in your compression shorts, no shirt, nothing. And I'll never forget this, because Sproles, he gets up there, and they go to measure him. Well, the sticker didn't come down low enough. So now you've got to wait for a new sticker to get put up. Now think about how embarrassing that would be, right? And I'll never forget it. And it's such a great life lesson, because Darren Sproles, his eyes never went down. He looked everybody in the room in the eye like he was not tall, but that was a full-grown man. And you could almost just see it, like it made him mad. Like, it wasn't embarrassing in the least. He waited his time. They got it. Finally got his official height. And we know what a bad little dude he ended up being in the NFL. But I'll never forget, because I was thinking, like, if I was in that situation, I'd be embarrassed, and my head was down, and nope. Like, I was like, that is a dude. And that's how he was. So that's the first one. And I'll get you guys' thoughts on these as we go, as I wrap them. But the next one was Pac-Man Jones. Well, I was in Baltimore. He came in our room, and one of the questions Ozzie Newsome asked him was, how would you grade your hands on a scale of 1 to 10? Most people would give you a number. Pac-Man goes, 10. 10. He graded his hands individually as 10s, not collectively as a group. This one's a 10, and this one's a 10, just in case you were wondering.
I like that. That's kind of unique. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it was he was like our number one player in the draft that year, just because he fit like the Ravens kind of mantra a little bit, the swagger that he had.
Little edge.
A lot of edge. Trying to think of the other one I was going to hit you on. Like Andre Johnson came in, and we were picking way lower than where he was going to go. And normally, if you've been in those rooms, the 15-minute time limit, teams are pushing it. They're trying to get you into the room before before the clock starts, so they can maximize it. And then a lot of times they don't want to release you at the 15-minute mark, and the other team's kind of pulling the player out of there to get him out of there. So you're maximizing your time. 15 minutes, every second counts. And Andre Johnson came in, and it was like an epiphany kind of hit the room. And I remember about 5 minutes into it, Ozzie was like, "What are we doing? Just all the best, man. just get out of here. There's no chance you're going to be there when we pick. Like, what are we doing here? We're wasting your time. You're wasting our time. We're good." And Andre wasn't a big talker, so I think he was fine with getting released early on that one.
No, I had some of those questions, man, that just, it was so, like, Bill Belichick was the only one out of all the teams that I met with that asked me about an incident I had I had an incident on a houseboat where I actually slipped down the steps, and I had to get like 20 staples in my head.
Oh, jeez.
And literally, he's the only one that asked. And then, like, I thought that was very interesting. Obviously, he's pretty thorough and does his homework. And then Tony Dungy did the same thing. I sat down with him, and he was like, "Hey, man, this is awesome." Like, we were like 7 minutes in. He was like, "This is awesome, dude. I love you. Tierlink would love to coach you. You fit with Mathis and Freeney." He was like, "You're not going to be there. Like, there's no way you're going to be there. So it really doesn't matter. Best of luck. But like, we just don't want to play against you." But those meetings are so much fun, man.
I remember. I won't out the player. I can't remember who it was, but there was an offensive lineman who there was some question about. There was a group of scouts that liked him, and there was a group that didn't like him. And the whole question was, everybody agreed he was athletic, but it was, how tough was he? Like, is he physical? Like, is he kind of a finisher? And that was one of my first years in the league. So I had to go get the players from the previous interview room and then bring him into the room. So I go to get him to bring him in, And, a lot of people will wear their sweats. Some guys, you get the guys who wear the suit, that'll come in there. It's all a little different. He had just a bright pink shirt on. And I remember as soon as I brought him in the room, the half that didn't think he was tough or physical were all like, see, there
Oh,
it is. Yeah, like, look, there you go. And the other guys who were fighting for him were just like, dang it. All for a stupid shirt. But I remember just distinctly walking in the room and seeing the reaction.
Two things. One, Sproles was in 05. Pick 130.
There you go. How about that?
You're right.
Yeah.
And two, that just it kind of goes to show the almost coin flip nature of so much of what the draft is and has become, that you can do so much research on all these little details, but in the end, it's so, I guess, much of a coin flip to get there. All right, so getting back to this year's draft and the combine this weekend, who are some guys maybe outside or that's teetering on the bottom end of your top 50 or even potentially outside of your top 50 where you're like, okay, now I need to go back and reevaluate, and these are guys who might now be first-round type guys and or getting into that top 50 big board for you?
Well, I always say the corners have the most to gain there because speed matters more at that position, and it can impact you more than any other spot. So Trey Amos from Ole Miss is a really good player. I loved every part of his tape except there was in the LSU game I saw him get run by, and so I was like, okay, I need to double check that this dude can really run, because I love his eyes. I love the way he plays the ball, all that stuff. That was the one question mark. And I don't have it in front of me. I think he ran 4.43, which more than passed the test. So he's going to go from just outside, like really like probably my 53rd, 54th player, that he'll get up in the 40s somewhere. He's going to be a top 50 pick, and maybe even could find his way into the bottom of the first round because he answered that one question. Maxwell Harrison I had in the early 40s. He's got a chance out of Kentucky, their corner, who flew and he had a good Senior Bowl process, and then he goes and has a great combine. He's got a chance to go in the back end of the first round, so he's going to probably move up a little bit in that area. So there's always guys that are kind of just hanging out there, and this kind of can push him up. I don't know that anybody's had a better process than Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, who's got legit 5-position flexibility, who dominated at the Senior Bowl. He didn't run there, but he jumped 36.5 inches. I mean, he's big, he's athletic, he's smart, he's tough. He started 1 billion games. Like I was talking about this on our podcast this morning. Like if you told me he was the 10th pick to the Chicago Bears, who have needs all over the place on the offensive line, I wouldn't even bat an eye. So that's someone who's aced. He just aced it. He's aced the spring. Especially those guys who haven't played at haven't played in a big time conference. He hasn't been in the SEC or the Big Ten. It's like those guys have a chance to help themselves more because they go in the Senior Bowl and see all the dudes and block all of them. And then they go to the combine, you line up next to him and watch him work out. And you're like, okay, yeah, he more than belongs.
He's a big dude who can move. And speaking of big dudes who can move that have great flowing locks, Tate Ratledge was another name that I wrote down who injury riddled sort of last year. And then the athleticism score that they put out, the next gen stats, he was up there along with Jared Wilson from Georgia as well. So that was one name that I think I had.
Yeah, he's a go back to the tape guy for me because I did not like him on 24 tape, and then obviously for the reasons you mentioned, he was hurt, he wasn't healthy. So there's a list of guys that I have on my 23 list. Like, okay, like I go back and watch 23 and get a chance to dig in and study him there. But yeah, his workout was excellent, and he definitely looked and moved a lot better than the guy I saw this year.
Well, he comes to our golf tournament every year. If you graded his golf swing, it's pathetic.
Is it bad?
Really.
How is your golf swing, dude? How are we looking?
It's getting better. When you get fired, it gets a lot better. You get more opportunities.
You're hilarious.
I
don't know that the opportunities is the thing though, because this is what I wish I never would have done, because I used to just play so sporadically, and I would tell myself, if I played more, I'd be better. And then I wasn't. And then I decided, well, I've just never had a lesson. If I got a lesson, I would pick it right up. So I went and got more than a handful of lessons, and I wasn't getting better. So now I'm mad at myself because I've exhausted a lot of my excuses, and it hasn't worked. By the way, I'll give you a quick football story. My first year with the Ravens, they have a personnel department golf tournament, and Ozzie Newsome gets the first pick. So you figure there's 16 guys, 4 teams of 4 or something like that for a scramble. And I'm not a golfer. I just started picking it up over the last 3 years. I've kind of gotten into it, and I'm marginally better. But so Ozzie gets the first pick, doesn't know me from Adam, right? I'm first year employee. He goes, I'll take Jeremiah with the first pick. And I'm like, whoa, like, no, Ozzie, I'm terrible. I've never golfed. I've never owned golf clubs. I've never golfed. He's like, you're a white quarterback from San Diego, California. He's like, you're going to be better than all these guys. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I've never golfed. We get to the first tee box, and to the right is the pro shop with siding on it. My first drive, it sounded like a bomb exploded when it hit that pro shop. And Ozzie goes, oh my gosh, you weren't kidding. I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? Like, you've put all this, not only am I not good, you've piled all this pressure on me of being the first pick in this. It was a nightmare. It was awful.
Hey, that man is a talent evaluator.
That's the worst pick he's ever made in his life. That is the only terrible pick that he's ever made.
Right. One other thing that stuck out, and you tweeted it, like the offensive line praying. I thought that was really, really cool, man. And you said all your years you'd never seen that.
You want to know what's crazy, Dave? Is like, this is how God works, right? So I know, and I get like this, and I'm sure a lot of people get like this, which is, how's God going to use me? Like, I mean, this is, in terms of the time commitment and what I'm going to do, and I got to go to the mission field to make some type of an impact. We were on commercial. We were on a break from our set, so it was going to go down to the lower set. And I just happened to look out of the corner of my eye and saw it, took a picture. I didn't even think anything of it. I just wanted to get it out there because I thought, man, it's pretty cool that they did that. I looked on Instagram. It has it's over 4 million views on Instagram. On Twitter, it has like over, I think it's close to 2 million views on it. So this is God just taking something that you did with the least amount of effort imaginable and like literally watch him spread this and make this a bigger thing. Like, that was a total God thing.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And can you confirm they were praying not to be drafted by the Giants? Can you confirm?
No comment.
You will neither confirm nor deny.
Correct.
All right, Brent, you got anything else?
No, I mean, the only other, like, it's hard to ask anything about that, but the draft thing that was actually interesting that came out with Carter, with Abdul Carter and his foot. Yeah. I wanted to get sort of your thoughts on that. And is that something where, does it preclude him from being that? Because when you're talking 1 or 2 overall, that's a different animal.
It doesn't sound serious from the medical people that I talk to, but I'm always careful, as we used to always say in the draft room, like, hey, let's let coaches coach, scouts, and doctors. So it's like, I don't technically know a whole lot about that, but the people that I question were like, well, he can get the surgery or not get the surgery, but it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. The one thing about him that's fascinating, I was talking to a team and they were kind of dinging him a little bit on maybe some of the work ethic or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, guys, he played with one arm in the playoffs.
And
like, if dominated. I'm like, if this guy doesn't love football, he doesn't play when he's not 100%. With all that he had to lose, with where his stock was draft wise, the fact that he was out there on the field, much less the fact he was dominating, like, I'm good there.
One last from me would be something you mentioned earlier, talking about Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah.
Just the running back depth and the quality of players. How do if you're a team, maybe other than the Falcons, because you got Bijan and Tyler Algier, it feels like every team in the league should draft at least one this year. And if you don't, that's kind of a fail.
Yeah, get one. Go ahead and get yourself a tight end or two too, if you'd like to do that. There's
Atlanta could use that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, the history there of doubling up at some of these positions is pretty good too. Our research pulled it up because I was curious. There's been a bunch of teams, where they've taken in a year with the good tight ends where they've taken 2 and the second guys end up being better than the first guy that you took. So if you have a need, last year the Philadelphia Eagles went into the draft, the biggest need was corner, and they doubled up on it and they solved it and ended up having the best young secondary in the NFL, and then have guys making key plays to help them win a Super Bowl. So this is a good year. You can double up on backs if you'd like.
Well, we appreciate your time, my man. And I know you won't be doing the NFL Network. You'll be doing your podcast with Bucky Brooks. And I'm telling you, man, there's nobody better, that's for sure, that will break it down. And obviously just a good dude. We appreciate your time, my man.
No, you're the best, man. It's great to be with you guys. We'll do it again soon.
See you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you.